Good morning, student. Welcome to the sixth lecture of unit number 5. In the last lecture, we have discussed about what is Android Media Player, then different classes, that means different method associated with that media player. After that, we have discussed about Android text to speech and the syntax related with the text to speech. And then again different methods which are associated with the Android text to speech. And the last we had discussed about the Android sensors. So in that topic we have seen there are basically three broad categories of sensors, that is motion sensor, environmental sensor, and position sensors. So motion sensors are useful to measure acceleration forces and rotational forces along three axes. After that, environmental sensors are useful to measure various environmental parameters such as ambient air temperature and pressure, illumination, and humidity. And the third type, that is position sensors, are useful to measure the physical position of device. And this category also includes orientation sensors and magnetometers. And after that, we have seen some frameworks, some sensor frameworks that perform some things they list all available sensors. They determine the capability of each sensors. Also, they can acquire raw data sensors and so on. Now, in today's lecture, we are going to discuss about the sensor classes, and after that, what is asynchronous tags. So, there are basically four sensor classes. First one is sensor manager, second one is sensor, then sensor event and sensor event list. So let's discuss one by one. So first one is the sensor manager. So by using this sensor manager class, we can create an instance of sensor service. That means we can create an object of sensor service, and this class provides a various methods for accessing and listing sensors. After that, they also provide various methods for registering and unregistering sensor event listeners and acquiring orientation information. So what does this class provides? They provides methods for accessing, listing, registering, and unregistering sensor event listeners and acquiring orientation information. So this is about the sensor manager class. Then the second one is the sensor. So by using this sensor class, we can create an instance. That means we can create an object of a specific sensor, and this class provides a various methods that let you to determine the sensor's capabilities. That means by using the sensor class, we are able to determine the capabilities of different sensor devices. Then third one is the sensor event. So the system uses this sensor event class to create a sensor event object, and it provides the raw sensor data, type of sensors that generated the event, accuracy of the data, and the timestamp of the event. So what are the things that are provided by the sensor event class? First one is it provides raw data of sensors. So raw sensor data. After that, it provides different types of sensors that generated the event. Third one, it provides the accuracy of the data, and then timestamp of the event. Timestamp of the event means the date and time when the event has been occurred. That is the timestamp of the event. And the last one is the sensor event list. So we can use this sensor event list to create two callback methods that receive notification. That means that receive sensor event. Sensor event means the notification when sensor value change. So when we will receive notification, that is sensor event, when the sensor value will be changed, or when sensor accuracy changes. So this is the sensor event list. So these are the four classes for the Android sensor: sensor manager, sensor, sensor event, and sensor event list. Now, these are the methods which are associated with the Android sensor. So these are basic 6 methods. First one is the get default sensor, and the parameter is integer type. So get default sensor method get default sensor for a given type, and we get the default sensor for a given type in integer, that is the parameter integer type. Then get inclination parameter is float. So get inclination methods computes the geomagnetic inclination angle in radians from the inclination matrix. Then register listener. The parameters for this method, there are 2 parameters for the register listener, that is sensor listener and int sensors and int rate. So this method registers a listener for the sensor. So first parameter is sensor listener, which sensor is listening, that means, and after that int sensor, which is integer type, and after that the rate, which is also integer data type. Then unregistered listener, there are 2 parameters for this method, sensor event listener and sensor. So this method unregisters a listener for the sensors with which it is registered. Then the fifth one is get orientation. Both the parameters are of float data type. So this method computes the device orientation based on the rotation matrix. So what is orientation? It depends on your rotation matrix. And the last one is get altitude. Again, 2 parameters of float data type, that is float P0 and float P. So this method computes the altitude in meters from the atmospheric pressure and the pressure at sea level. So both the pressures, that is atmospheric pressure and the pressure at sea levels, are computed in meters. So for computing this, we use get altitude method. So these are the 6 methods that are associated with the Android sensor. After that, next topic that we have to discuss is Android asynchronous tasks. So Android asynchronous tasks going to do background operations on the background thread and going to update on main thread. So in Android, we can't directly touch background thread to main thread in Android development. So asynchronous tasks help us to make communication between background thread to main thread. So what is the basic working of Android asynchronous tasks? To help us to make communication between background thread and main thread. That means asynchronous tasks going to do background operations on background thread, and they are also going to update main thread. So there are 2 ways to do a background processing in Android. First one is using the asynchronous tasks class or using the loader framework. So these are the 2 ways to do background processing. First one is asynchronous tasks and the second one is using loader framework, which includes an asynchronous tasks loader class that uses the asynchronous tasks. So in most situations, you will choose the loader framework, but it is important to know how asynchronous tasks work so you can make a good choice. So process is to do some tasks in the background of the UI thread. So basically, there are 2 rules of Android thread. First one is the do not block the UI thread, and second rule is the Do UI work only on the UI thread? First, we will discuss about the rule number 1, that is, do not block the UI thread. So the UI thread needs to give its attention to drawing the UI, that is user interface, and keeping the app responsive to user input. If everything happens on the user interface thread, long operations such as network access or database queries could block the whole user interface, and from the user's perspective, the application would appear to hang. And even in the worst condition, if the user interface thread were blocked for more than few seconds, that is about 5 seconds, if your user interface thread were blocked for more than 5 seconds, then user will be presented with the application not responding dialog. In most of the time while using mobile phone, you have noticed this error message that your application is not responding, or it's taking longer time for response, exit or wait for some time. You have seen such type of error messages on your mobile screen. So this is the working of your UI thread. So the user might decide to quit application or uninstall it or wait for some time. Then, to make sure that your app does not block the UI thread, complete all work in less than 30 milliseconds for each UI screen. That means while developing, we have to complete our all work in less than 16 milliseconds for each user interface screen, and don't run asynchronous tasks and other long-running tasks on the UI thread. Instead, implement tasks on the background thread using asynchronous tasks, and which is for short or uninterruptible tasks, or asynchronous task loader for the tasks that are high priority or the tasks that need to report back to the user or UI. So we are currently discussing the rules regarding Android thread, from which the first rule is do not block the UI thread. Okay, that means don't block the UI thread, because UI thread needs to give attention to drawing UI. After that, everything happen on the UI thread, that is long running operations like network access, database query. They also could block the whole UI, and from these consequences the application would appear to hang, and that's why we have to make sure that app does not block the UI thread. And if it is, and or if your UI thread were blocked for more than 5 seconds, the user will be represented with the error message, that is application is not responding. After that, you have to complete all work in less than 60 milliseconds for each user interface screen. And also don't run asynchronous tasks and other long running tasks on the UI thread. Then the second rule is do UI work only on the UI thread. That means it is compulsory to do user interface work only on the user interface thread. So don't use a background thread to manipulate your UI, because Android UI toolkit is not a thread safe. Asynchronous tasks is used for providing, or is used to help us for the communication between UI thread and main thread. And that's why we have to do UI work only on the UI thread, and don't use background thread to manipulate user interface, because Android user interface toolkit is not a thread safe. After that, steps involved for the asynchronous tasks. So basically there are 4 steps for which are involved in the asynchronous tasks. So first one is the on pre-execute method, then $and background method, on progress update, and on post execute, and parameter is result. So let's discuss one by one. So first one is the on pre-execute method. This on pre-execute method is invoked on the UI thread before the task is executed. That means This step is normally used to set up the tasks, for instance by showing a progress bar in the UI. Then $n background method. This method is invoked on the background thread immediately after on pre-execute method finishes. That means after on pre-execute method, $n background method will be invoked. Then these steps perform, that means invoking $n background step performs a background computation, returns a result, and passes the result to on post execute method. So the $n background method can also call publish progress to publish one or more unit of progress. Then on progress update method. This method runs on the user interface thread after publish progress and use on progress update method to report any form of progress to the UI thread while the background computation is executing. So for instance, you can use it to pass the data, to animate a progress bar, or show logs in a text field. Then on post execute runs on the UI thread after the background computation has finished. So these are the 4 steps involved in asynchronous tasks. After that, parameters, asynchronous tasks parameters. So there are 3 parameters. First one is params, then progress, and third one is result. So what is param? Actually, these are the data types of 3 kind of parameters. So first one is the param, specifies the type of parameters passed to $n background method as an array. That means this param is passed as a type of parameter passed to this asynchronous tasks method, that is $n background method as an array. Then progress. Progress specifies the type of parameters passed to publish progress on the background thread. That means this progress parameter is passed to publish progress on the background thread, and these parameters are then passed to on progress update method. That means this progress is passed as a parameter to on progress update method on the main thread. After that, result. Result specifies the type of parameter that $n background return. So whatever the return by this $n background method, result specifies the type of that results parameter, and this parameter is automatically passed to on post execute method on the main thread, and the parameter returned by the $n background method is passed as a parameter. The result of which is written by $n background method is passed as a parameter to this on post execute method. So asynchronous method, there are 3 parameters: param, progress, result. Then public class MySynchronous tasks extends asynchronous tasks, string, void, and bitmap. There are 3 parameters and parameters in $n background. These are the examples of these asynchronous tasks parameters. And last one is the limitations of asynchronous tasks. So we have seen what is asynchronous tasks. Then we have discussed about the rules which are associated with the asynchronous tasks. After that, we have also discussed the steps involved in asynchronous tasks, that is on pre-execute method, $n background method, on progress update method, on post execute method. After that, we have seen the parameters of the asynchronous tasks. And now at the last, let's discuss the limitations of the asynchronous tasks. So what are the limitations of the asynchronous tasks? First one is the asynchronous tasks is impractical for some use cases. It is impractical for some use cases. Second, changes to device configuration can cause problems So this is another limitation of the asynchronous tasks, that if device configuration changes, then it will cause problem to the system. When device configuration changes while an asynchronous task is running, for example, if user is changing screen orientation, the activity that created the asynchronous task is destroyed and recreated. And these are the problems caused by this change device configuration. So when device configuration changes while asynchronous task is running, for example, user changing activity, user changing screen orientation, screen color, or anything else, the activity that created the asynchronous task is destroyed and recreated. And it means that the asynchronous task is unable to access the newly created activity. That means asynchronous task is unable to change your screen orientation, and the result of asynchronous tasks are not published. That means your app is not responding to your activity. Then the old asynchronous tasks objects stay around, and your app may run out of memory or crash. So this is the another limitation of asynchronous tasks, that your app may run out of memory or your app will going to crash. Then if the activity that created the asynchronous task is destroyed, the asynchronous task is not destroyed along with it. And for example, if user exits the application after asynchronous task has started, the asynchronous tasks keep using resources unless you call cancel. It means that if activity that created asynchronous task is destroyed, but still asynchronous task is not destroyed along with it unless user call cancel method. So these are the limitations of asynchronous tasks, that it is impractical. If device configuration changes, it will cause problem, and your app will no longer responding to you. Sometimes your app may run out of memory or it may crash, and unless you call cancel, your asynchronous activity is not destroyed. So these are the limitations of the asynchronous task. So in today's lecture we have discussed about sensor classes. So basically 4 sensor classes we have seen: sensor manager, sensor event, and sensor event list. After that we have discussed 6 different methods related to the Android sensor. Then we have seen what is Android's asynchronous tasks, that it helps us to communicate between background thread to main thread, and it is going to do background operations on the background thread and updates on the main thread. After that, we have seen 2 rules of Android thread that do not block the UI thread, and if it is blocked more than 5 seconds, it means that your app is no longer responding. And we have to complete our UI tasks within 16 milliseconds. Then do UI work only on the UI thread, because UI thread is not a safe. That means we have to do our UI work in only UI thread, because Android UI toolkit is not a thread safe. After that, we have discussed 4 steps involved for asynchronous tasks, that is on pre-execute, DOL and background, on progress update method, on post execute method, and then the parameters, that is param parameter, progress parameter, and the result parameter. And after that, we have seen the limitations of the asynchronous task.